could be sold or traded like any other commodity. The Vikings had established trade networks across Europe and the Middle East, and slaves were a valuable part of this trade. Major markets like Dublin in Ireland and Hedeby in Denmark were known for their bustling slave trade, where thralls were bought and sold alongside other goods. Not all thralls came from Viking lands. The Vikings raided far and wide, capturing people from as far away as the British Isles, Eastern Europe, and even occasionally from North Africa. These captives were brought back to Scandinavia and sold into slavery, their lives forever changed by the Viking raids. The life of a thrall was harsh, but there were some protections in Viking law. For example, it was illegal to kill a thrall without just cause. If a master killed a thrall without reason, they would have to pay a fine. However, these laws did little to ease the daily suffering of thralls, who were still treated as property rather than people. Female thralls often faced even greater hardships. They were not only forced to work, but were also subjected to sexual exploitation. Many were used as concubines, and any children they bore were born into slavery. The treatment of female thralls varied, but the power dynamics always favored the master, leaving these women vulnerable and oppressed. In rare cases, a thrall could earn their freedom. This might happen if they were particularly skilled, or if they had saved enough to buy their freedom. There are also records of masters freeing their thralls as a reward for loyal service. But even after gaining freedom, former thralls often remained at the edges of society, marked by their past. Number 3. The ordeal. A Viking stands accused of theft, a crime that could tear apart the fragile trust within the community. The chieftain and the thing, the assembly of free men, debate the case. But evidence is scarce, and words are conflicting. How to find the truth? The answer is simple, yet terrifying: an ordeal. This ordeal could take several forms. One common method was the ordeal of boiling water. The accused would be forced to plunge their hand into a cauldron of boiling water to retrieve a stone or an iron ring from the bottom. The hand would then be wrapped, their arm into the boiling hot water to retrieve the object and pull it out, after which their arm was immediately bandaged. And after 3 days, it would be unwrapped in front of the assembly. If the wound had healed cleanly, the gods had spoken, and the person was innocent. If the wound was festering or showed signs of infection, guilt was confirmed. Another method was the ordeal of fire. Here, the accused might be required to carry a red-hot iron bar for a set distance. As with the boiling water ordeal, the condition of the wound after a few days would determine the outcome. The clean healing of the burns would indicate divine favor and innocence, while infected wounds signified guilt. Another common ordeal involved water. The accused would be thrown into a body of water, bound hand and foot. If they floated, it was considered a sign of guilt, as water was believed to reject a person who had lied. If they sank, they were seen as innocent, though this innocence might come at the cost of drowning. The innocence of someone was determined by them drowning in the water. The idea was that the innocent person who sank would be pulled out of the water after. These ordeals were not just about physical endurance. They were deeply rooted in the belief that the gods would protect the innocent. The idea was that divine justice would reveal itself through the healing process, showing the truth where human words and evidence could not. Even for the Vikings, who were known for their toughness, these ordeals were terrifying. They placed their fate not only in the hands of the chieftain and the thing, but also in the hands of the gods. The fear of being found guilty through an ordeal was so strong that it could sometimes drive confessions before the ordeal even took place. These were not common punishments, but were reserved for cases where no other method could resolve the truth. It was a final, desperate measure to ensure justice was served in a world where the divine was believed to play a direct role in human affairs. The ordeal as a method of justice eventually faded with the Christianization of the Viking lands, as the new faith brought different ideas of law and justice. Number 2. Cow rodeo. If you were a Norseman in the early Middle Ages and someone disrespected your wife, how would justice be served? You'd take matters into your own hands, literally. A popular way to settle such disputes was through a duel, known as a holmgang. In Sweden and Denmark, a man who lost a duel might find himself facing a challenge that was both bizarre and terrifying. A cow rodeo. After the duel, if the victor wasn't satisfied with the bloodshed, the loser was offered one final chance to save his life. This was no ordinary contest. It involved a wild cow, a greasy tail, and a desperate grip. The cow was brought into the arena, its tail shaved and coated in grease, making it slippery and hard to hold. The man's shoes were also greased, ensuring that keeping his balance would be almost impossible. The cow, already agitated, was then flogged and prodded to provoke it further. The task was simple in theory, but daunting in practice. The man had to hold on to the cow's tail as it thrashed about, trying to escape. If he could manage to hold on for the required amount of time, his life would be spared. And as a reward, he could even keep the cow. This strange and brutal test was more than just a way to save face. It was a display of endurance and strength, a final test of whether the loser deserved to walk away alive. If he failed, it was likely he would face death anyway, either from the cow or by the hand of his opponent. Number 1. Public flogging. Public flogging in Viking society wasn't just a punishment, it was a public spectacle, a powerful deterrent meant to humiliate and physically torment those who broke the laws of their community. This brutal form of punishment was often reserved for crimes that violated the social order, such as theft, adultery, or acts that threatened the community's stability. In Viking culture, maintaining honor was everything. Even lesser crimes, if repeated, could result in this painful punishment. The flogging was typically carried out during the Thing. The offender would be tied to a post or tree, and the lashes would be administered in full view of the public. This was not just about physical pain. It was about making an example of the person, showing everyone the consequences of stepping out of line. The number of lashes varied depending on the severity of the crime, but the punishment was always designed to inflict maximum pain and suffering. The whip, often made of leather or even metal-tipped cords, would tear into the flesh, leaving permanent scars both physically and mentally. What made public flogging even more terrifying was the communal aspect of it. The entire village or community would often gather to watch, and in some cases, they might even participate by jeering or mocking the person being punished. The public nature of the flogging meant that the shame was shared with everyone, ensuring that the person would be remembered for their crime long after the wounds had healed. In some cases, the flogging could be followed by additional punishments, such as banishment or even execution if the crime was severe enough. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.